Hello, everyone. So today I want to talk a little bit about getting advice and how a person's personality type reflects that or makes the advice good or not so good. So first I want to go into personality type a little bit. And I've been recently doing a lot of, exploring my own personality, my own interaction with, other people and different situations to try and have a better understanding of, what things I've been good at in life, what things I can improve, and, what skills that I can develop to, be more successful in the areas where I think I can or need to grow. So, what I found is that the Myers Briggs system seems to be a pretty good explanation of a lot of the aspects of my personality. Now, what this is, it's pretty widely used. It divides people into 16 different categories based on, four different sets of characteristics. Are you introverted or extroverted? Do you focus more on thoughts or on feelings? Do you inter- perceive the world through your senses, or do you more interpret it in the basis of your intuition? And do you make judgments about it? In other words, what can I do to respond to the situation versus to just perceive the way things are and be content with observing them. So, in particular, so I actually there is an official test, which I took a number of years ago as part of a training class for my old job. What I thought that I was, if you're familiar with the type, there's, four different letters, designating where you are in each of the categories. I had thought at the time that I was INTJ. Uh, it turns out that actually is not what I scored on the test. I don't actually remember what I scored on the test, other than that I came out back as being very introverted. But in sort of reading the way that the different personalities, people in the different personality categories tend to shake out, I think I'm probably INTP. So what that means, I'm introverted. I use a lot of intuition. I tend to focus more on thoughts than on feelings, and I tend to favor making perceptions rather than judgments. Now, perceptions versus judgments are a little hard to explain. I'd rather than me trying to give a bad explanation, which won't really do the concepts justice, there's a number of other videos you can look at. But basically, what people with that personality type all often come, uh, um, out as are scientists or engineers. Okay, so in college, I majored in physics. And one of the things that is written that's characteristic of this type is that they like to formulate some, one overarching theory that explains everything that they're observing and interacting with. And one of the things that attracted me to physics was that there's a few equations which try to explain large aspects of how the entire universe works. Now, to be fair, I'll point out for those of you who don't have a physics background, the equations tend to be very abstract and very hard to apply and get exact answers to, except in very simple cases. So, you may understand the concept, yeah, this is how everything works, but sometimes calculating the details is still kind of challenging. Okay, so there's 16 different types in Myers-Briggs. And what's interesting about them is that, they're not equally distributed among the population. There's, according to one source that I read recently, there's like, out of the 16 types, there's like the top 5 make up at least half of the population. And my type, it turns out, is relatively rare among the population, as are several of the others. So the N, which is the second letter, means that you're intuitive. Most people are perceive the world through their senses rather than intuition. You know, one's not better than the other, but that's just a different, creates a different personality and a different way in which people interact with the world. So why I'm going into some of this background is that I think what I found in my life in thinking about sort of advice that I've been given by people or read from various sources, you know just you know videos, the internet, magazines, whatever, the sort of life advice. Oh, you should do this. A lot of it tends to be focused towards the most common personality types. And when you have someone with a less common personality type, I think a lot of times it can sort of end up being backwards. For instance, one thing, common advice that, people are given, oh, you should study hard, you should work hard, you should, save your money, you should, avoid doing things that are risky and be prudent. Okay, but someone who's already maybe has a very cautious personality, maybe they need to get out a little more and loosen the reins a little more. So giving one person the standard advice might actually be detrimental to them. And so what I would encourage people to do, if you're giving advice to someone, try to understand who they are, what their personality is, and the way that they would naturally behave. And if they're already behaving in the way that the advice is telling them, then you might just be having too much of a good thing. If you're getting advice, realize that it might not necessarily be tailored to you. And sometimes listening to advice that might be good for a different personality is actually harmful if you take it to heart too much. Kind of the adage from the ancient world, moderation in all things, which really kind of means, overall kind of the average of what other people, are doing, but we're not all the same. So some of us may tend to, go off in one direction from kind of the average or typical value. Some of us might tend to go off in the other direction. And I think one of the important parts about self growth is to know your own tendencies. And if you're not sure what advice you need to take, or, oh, I, saw this article source, heard this person say that, oh, I should do this. Try to find someone who actually knows you. It can be really hard to ground yourself, just in isolation, but someone who knows your personality and to say whether that vice really is the way that you need to be going. So, it's kind of the other adage from the ancient world, uh, know thyself. So this is kind of a little bit general and abstract. And for anyone watching who, has studied personality types, I guess you can maybe decide from what you're hearing whether I've called my personality type correctly here. But anyway, hope you're all having a good week, and I will see you later.